Ooh, do I have something for you guys today? Oh, it's gonna make your head go. But first, hey, welcome back everyone. How's everyone doing? Everyone looks to be good. How about you in the back? The one hiding. Why are you hiding? This is a video. Relax. It's cool. Good to see you're back. So if you remember, one of my previous videos we talked about creating particles in Illustrator, and part of selling the super fanciness of that logo was the background and the really cool gradients. So let's go take a look. No, for real, come on, let's go take a look. Here we are in Illustrator. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool and I'm just gonna go ahead and change it to something that's not white since the background is white. I'm going to click and drag and just make a nice big box. There you go. We've all done that before, but that's not where we're going to stop. If we come here to the gradient tool, or G, as you can see is the shortcut, I'm going to click on that and then click on my shape. And here we see this gradient bar. If you see on the left here, we have this black dot on the very end of this. We can use that to move this gradient bar around. And if we move that back over here, we see this square. And if we click and drag that, we can manipulate the gradient even more. And we can grab this bar and do all kinds of really cool stuff and actually place this gradient where we want it to be. And if we come back to the right side, we see go just outside the box and you get this rotating arrow thing. So now we can actually take that bar and rotate it. One of the things that we want to take a look at here is this little diamond. If you click this diamond and move it, you see that it affects the way the gradient is laid down. A little bit more to the black color, and it takes the white color takes over way more of the gradient. And if we move it back towards the white, then there's more black, obviously. So I'm going to put that in the middle. If you notice, when I come close to the bar, it's that black arrow, but once I get to the other side, it's going to turn into a white arrow with a plus. If I click, I get another one of these circles. Illustrator calls these a stop, and we can add as many of these as we want. Now I'm going to take this circle here, and if I double click, I get to change the color that's going to be showing up there. And same thing here. And we can go completely nuts, but that's not what we really want to do. Click on the stop, come over here to the gradient panel. And if you don't have the gradient panel, just go up to window and drop down to gradient, and that'll make the panel show up. While we're here, the same thing we did on the bar, we can do in the gradient panel. So you see all of the stops, all of the circles, and if I click on the yellow one on the bar is highlighted. Same with blue and gray. If I were to take this gray and drag it off of the gradient panel, it deletes it. I can also click on this blue one, click this little trash can, and it deletes that stop we can click and drag, and if I grab that stop and just pull it off the bar, it also deletes it. So now we have 3 different ways to delete the different stops. And the same way we can delete stops multiple ways, we can also change the color of the different stops in 3 different ways. If I double click, I get the color panel and I'm able to change that. If I select one of the stops and double click the fill box here, I can manipulate the color in that way. Click OK, and now you're starting to see all of the different ways. And just to be absolutely thorough, we're going to click here to add another stop, and we can double click and change that color. And that's the linear gradient. So now go ahead and we're going to change linear over to, you see here where it says type, there's these 3 little boxes. The first box is the linear gradient. The second box is a radial gradient, and it's handled the same exact way as you do the linear gradient. It just shows up as a circle, obviously. And again, we can manipulate the colors just by clicking and dragging the different handles, the different stops, the different diamonds. So now we're going to take a look at the third way to create a gradient. In the gradient panel, under type, we already took a look at the linear gradient. We already took a look at the radial gradient. But the third box is the new one. This is the Freeform Gradient tool. Go ahead and click that. And the first thing you notice is the color completely changed, and it's super smooth, and all this really cool gradient mixture is happening. And we see these stops again. All of them are manipulatable. Is that a word? Manipulatable? They're able to be manipulated. And same thing as the other ones. If I click on that stop, double click, I'm able to change the color. Whether it's from the pop-up menu that happens when you double click on that stop. If you come over to the panel, you're able to click here and manipulate the color that way. I'm going to change this one. I think I want to go a little bit more of a hot color, and I'm just going to play with it. I'm just looking for dramatic colors that fit good together. Up here, for some reason, I think I want it to be a yellowish color, and down here might be fine. I'm going to see what it looks like if we turn it red. Yeah, that's super dramatic. Cool. And yet again, with the gradient tool selected, I'm going to click on any one of these stops, and you see this circle. That's kind of like the area of influence. And if I want it to be, if I want there to be more of this aqua color, I can do a couple different things. I can grab that aqua and drag it over, and you see how it's starting to affect all of the other colors. Another way to do that, I don't need to move that stop around. There's this little dot that happens to be in this circle of influence. If I grab that, you see I can drag it and it pulls the color out more. Or if I drag that little dot a little closer back to the stop, it pulls the color back in. So the area of influence is directly affected by how big that little dotted circle is. And yet again, if we click and drag that stop, it affects all the other colors. This is something that I didn't even think about until just now. If you're doing some digital art, some painting, anything like that, and you can drop down some colors like this, you'll be able to use that as almost like a paint palette. you just click and sample colors off of this and you're able to get it in. Anyway, that's for another video, I guess. I just gave myself an idea for another video. What's cool here is I can click and you see there's a little black arrow with a stop and then a plus sign. That means if I click, I'm able to add more colors, and you can go absolutely bananas doing that. It's a lot of fun. Yet again, double click and you can affect the color that's happening at that dot. If I click and hit delete, that dot goes away, or that stop goes away. Or again, I'm able to select a stop and then go to the gradient panel, hit that little trash can. Okay, if you notice under type, there is a little area that's called draw. So there's two different kinds of stops that you can put down. You can put down points, which is what we've been playing with this entire time. Or what I'm going to do is hold this stop over here and I'm going to click lines. If I click, a new stop is created, and now you see that there's this line happening. So I can click again, and now we're able to see this curve. And this curve is a series of colors that will adjust in a little bit that will follow that line. And we don't necessarily have to make a complete circle. We could just throw down a line and we see how that curve is affected. So I want that to be the last stop, so I'm going to hit escape. And all of this is, you can manipulate these stops to create a certain effect that you're trying to get to. So I'm going to click this points stop and drag it to the middle, so you can see how the different stops affect the color that it's putting down and the gradient that's being created. If I go to this line and click that stop, I'm able to double click and I want that to be blue, and then you see how that turns white. I want that to be maybe a pink, purple color. And you can get lost in this super easily. I'm going to clean some of these stops out just because now we're going to move from Illustrator into Photoshop. So we have this shape. I cheated a little bit. I have a photo open and I took a look at the dimensions and I purposely created this shape in the same dimensions as my photograph. Click the shape and you can go up to edit, copy, or as you see there, you can hit the Command and C key for copy. We're gonna flip over to Photoshop, and here's a picture of me. I was on a trip, and this is a picture from some of the footage that I had on one of my artist alfresco trips. So knowing that I have my Illustrator shape copied, we're going to flip over to Photoshop and I'm going to go up to Edit and Paste. You're going to get this dialog box. I'm going to make sure that it says Smart Object, and I'll explain why that's important here in a little bit. So we're going to make sure Smart Object and click OK. Our shape with all the gradients is placed. Double click to make those handles go away. And we see over here on the right hand side in the layers panel, we have the original photograph and we have the shape. If I click here, these blend modes will show up, and now we're able to cycle through and see how these colors affect that photograph. And I'm just going to run through these just to see if there's anything that really piques my interest. Overlay looks really cool. Soft light, hard light looks really cool too. Okay, so I think it's between overlay and hard light. I like overlay. I like overlay. So this is why it's important that we had that smart object option checked when we first pasted this shape down. Now I'm able to double click on that smart object, and this is the original, and this is the vector smart object, right? So this is our original. We can close that, and I'm gonna say don't save because we don't need it. We don't need to save it. We have this guy here. If I click on the gradient, I'm able to then come here, change the color, I'm going to go up to File, Save. Now this Vector Smart object, you can see there, is being saved. I'm going to flip back over to Photoshop. And we're going to be able to see how that color now affects our photograph. The cool thing about smart objects is we're able to create a mask on top of it. And if we have a brush tool, make sure black is the color. In Photoshop, when you're dealing with masks, the color white is what is showing through and the color black is what's being masked out. So if we go here, we're going to paint out and make sure that the mask itself is selected when you're doing this. There's a lot of times I'll accidentally paint on something because it's selected, the left part of this layer selected. So yet again, when you're dealing with a mask, make sure that the mask is selected, and when you paint, that part of that layer will then be masked out. And if you want to add some of that color back in, you just switch this. You see this little double-headed arrow down here? Just click that and you'll see the colors flip. The shortcut for that is the letter X. I'm tapping the letter X and it's flipping those colors. Making sure that color white is selected. I'm going ahead and paint back some of that. Yeah, I kind of like that. That's pretty cool. I'm going to delete that mask though because I really do like that whole effect. So what do you guys think? We used Illustrator to create 3 different kinds of gradients, and the newest one, which is the Freeform Gradient, we used to create a really cool gradient that we then used on our photography to add some really cool effects. Mind blown? If you guys are using this technique, please tag me. If you're posting these pictures on Instagram, tag me at Coconut Justice. I would love to see how you guys are using this technique. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you know someone who might find this video helpful, share this video with them and let them know that we are hanging out here every week. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe, because like I said, we're here every week. And there's a little bell that's there right by the subscribe button. Click that, and every time I come out with a new video, you'll be alerted. How cool is that? All right, that's it for me. I hope you had fun. I know I did. Until we see each other again. Later.